What I'm going to go through today are the processes required that can take any company, whether it's a solo business owner who's doing all the sales themselves or it's an established business, any company, put them in a place to build their first and or an additional team of 10 over the next 6 months with a sales manager in place. And so we're going to talk about automating new hire training, automating role play, which is practicing with reps as they get ramped up into the position, recruiting and developing your leader, and then ultimately recruiting the reps. And so it's an entire process, and it may sound overwhelming for you guys, but this is what it takes to really scale up. So first thing is your new hire training. Now, I'm not sure exactly where you guys are yet, but when you go to scale up your commission-based sales team, it's incredibly important that we have a good vehicle for people to come in. If I come in to your organization today and your sales model, your sales process, your compensation plan, your training around your company, your sales process, your sales tech, your products and services, the insurance part of the business, if you're in, storm restoration, the types of customers that you sell to, if the system and the training around that stuff is not created and organized, then I'm going to come in and be like, these guys are a mess. I'm going to be looking for something new very quickly. And so the top candidates that come through the recruiting process, which we'll talk about recruiting later, I'm also going to throw in some compensation stuff today too. But the top candidates that come through your recruiting process, if you don't have your stuff dialed and organized, then they're going to be judging your company immediately, and you're going to lose the top people. And then on the other end, for the average people who are more like quota producing reps, if they come in, they maybe are not judging your processes because they can't compare it to anything else. But if an average Joe, average quota producing rep comes into your organization and they don't have the systems to train up and to see success, then they're actually not going to even have a chance. And so foundationally around new hire training and having the systems to ramp up reps, that's incredibly important for both the top candidates because they'll judge you if you don't have those things in place and they'll be looking for somebody that's more organized, a better opportunity. And then also it's important for the average quota producing reps because they actually need that stuff to have a chance in your hypothetical door-to-door commission-based sales opportunity or whatever your sales model is going
Soon
to
as
be.
you get that set, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, did you have a question, Mike? Or were you talking to somebody else? Did you have a question, Mike?
No, I'm sorry. I was talking to one of my employees and didn't mute quick enough.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Um, and so there's a lot that goes into building out your training process, but what we help clients do is we help them build out that process, but ultimately take that entire process and automate it. So everything informationally around the onboarding process is fully automated. Now, the average roofing company that's seeing retention success in their sales team, they're investing 20 to 60 hours a month into training new recruits. 20 to 60 hours per month, right? So that ends up being on average like 10 hours per week of time investment just in training, right? And that doesn't include any role play or sales management or general Q&A that's happening for new reps. So we come to the conclusion based on those numbers that the time investment into training reps, if we're going to give them a shot for success, is fairly high. And there's a couple things. Is first off, if you're anything like our clients, you don't have the desire or probably the time to invest consistently into that process to actually scale up quickly enough. Because you'll notice by the end of this training as well that the recruiting and onboarding aspect of building a commission-based sales team, especially in roofing sales, where it takes a good 60 to 90 days to start making decent money, especially an opportunity where maybe they're self-generating and closing their own deals on the doors, it's a volume game. And recruiting and onboarding needs to be set up for volume. So you get burnt out if you're constantly investing 10, 15, 20 hours per week in onboarding reps just to try to scale up your sales team. So what we like to do is we like to help clients build out their new hire training and automate that entire process. So if you can imagine, let's say, Mike, your company, I know you mentioned it earlier, but let's just say hypothetically it's Mike Roofing, right? Let's say that you have Mike Roofing University and everything about your sales opportunity company, everything that a rep needs to know is taught inside of that university. Let's say it's 15 hours. And then I come on board and I'm assigned MikeRoofingUniversity.com or the platform. And I go through a few hours of training every single day, Monday through Friday on my downtime, automating the informational side of your onboarding process. Foundationally, that's one of the most important things from our perspective when you're trying to scale quickly, at least, right? to build your sales team. So here's some benefits of building out your new hire training, right? Obviously, the big one is the time saving. So on average, clients, they'll save 20 to 60 hours a month compared to what they were doing before. Now, if you guys haven't been building your sales teams before, then you don't have any context of, past experience because you haven't been doing it. But on average, most clients are saving 20 to 60 hours. One of my favorite case studies for our clients in roofing is Gold Medal Roofing. Um, they launched with our new hire training university and recruiting services in January of this year. Their best month was in December last year. They did 1.75 million in December in approved jobs. By the end of March, they did 5.5 million in 1 month. So they grew by roughly whatever that is. That is 3x. Okay. From their perspective, based on what they were doing before, and again, they were already roughly a 15 to $20 million company, they were investing 60 to 80 hours a month for every rep that came on board. So their leadership was spending that time to get reps ramped up. And they had about a 10% retention rate. So they would invest 60 to 80 hours a month for every single rep and have to recruit 10 reps to retain one that scaled up into quota. A massive, massive time investment. Well, we helped them build out and automate everything information around their onboarding process. They immediately saved 60 to 80 hours per month for every rep that got onboarded into their company, which is obviously huge in and of itself. But that was one of the things that allowed them to go from 1.75 million to 5.5 million a month within 90 days. Now, that's one of our best case studies, but it's one of my favorite, and I like to talk about it because a big reason of that was because of the new hire training university piece. So here's 10 things. And the reason I'm going to list out all these 10 is if you guys are serious about scaling up your sales team, one of the bare minimum things that I want you to take away from this call is one of the most valuable things that you can do for yourself and any future leaders that are helping you is build out your new hire training university and automate the majority of that process because you got the time savings, right? Whether you're an owner or you're delegating to a leader, that's going to make you or that leader, uh, like their job more, right? There's nothing that kind of grinds you out more than onboarding several reps every couple of weeks or whatever it is and having people not retain and stick. And you're getting burnt out 10 to 20 hours a week, 10 to 20 hours a week, 10 to 20 hours a week because you got to recruit the volume to actually retain people, resulting into sales production. And so it really burns you out. If you're an owner, you don't have the time to do that. And if you're delegating that to your leader and they're doing that for 10 to 20 hours per week, that's making them actually hate their sales leadership job, which is not what you want for your sales manager if you're going to retain them long term. Um, so another benefit is you don't end up hating your job and your sales manager doesn't either. Another benefit of building out and automating your new hire training, it allows for volume recruiting, right? If you're doing it live by yourself or your leader is, then you get burnt out and therefore you're not willing to constantly onboard reps. Well, in a commission-based model, it's all about the volume and you got to consistently scale up or it's going to take you forever to build the company that you want to. Okay. My company, Bigfoot, we started it in January, right? That example. Last month we did 1.2 million bucks, just over 1.2 in approved jobs. And that's because at the beginning of the year, I recruited straight for 3 months, right? I pumped in 4 reps every 2 weeks, which was 24 reps over the first 12 weeks of the year, and retained a third of them, 8 reps, that ultimately are now, plus some owners or my partners selling that are doing roughly $1 million a month. Okay, but we had the recruiting and the onboarding set up to make it where we could actually manage and execute that, and that allowed us to grow much more quickly than maybe the average small business owner. So the third benefit of the university is the volume. It'll allow you to increase dramatically the volume of recruits that you're bringing on board. That's assuming you're not doing salaries and training pays and training pay and leads and these kind of things, right? If it's truly an all commission opportunity, then you're not limited financially in the amount of recruits that you can bring on board because you're not blowing out your budget, right? I have to come in as a rep, generate the lead, close the lead, and then the company makes money and I make money, right? So that's not usually financially burdensome on the company, and therefore we want to increase the amount of recruits we're bringing on board as quickly as possible, so it doesn't take us 90 years to build the company that we want. The fourth benefit is consistency in your training. So when you build out your entire new hire training university and you automate that entire process, and it's the same hypothetical 15 hours week after week after week after week for new reps coming on board, well, the benefit is is every new rep coming on board, they get the exact same training versus you cutting corners and or your future leader cutting corners because they're getting burnt out on the training process and they only want to do the bare minimums in the onboarding process. That can easily happen. It happens a lot. So consistency, ensuring reps get quality training every single time is a benefit. When you're new hire training university, the fifth benefit, and I'm not going to do this for every topic, but I want to drill home this university piece for you guys. The fifth benefit is when your new hire training is set up and automated, you can actually delegate that process a lot more easily. So as an example, Mike, let's say that you're the killer sales guy, right? You're the small business owner looking to scale up your sales team. Um, you're the best person right now to train the reps, right? And delegating that process is not going to necessarily be easy for you to delegate to somebody that's doing it as good as maybe you would. And so when that process is fully automated, well, when you're delegating new hire training and taking that off your plate, the management of the onboarding process is really simple because somebody's just managing the administrative side of a rep actually going through the university that's already been automated and that's happening perfectly every single time. Hopefully that makes sense. Another benefit, the sixth benefit, is reps. They ramp up much more quickly. So what we typically set up for clients is their universities get built, and then reps start going through that university before they even start on Monday. But at a minimum, they'll go through it 2 times in the first 2 weeks. So as an example, let's say you have modules 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and it's a few hours of training every single day, automating 3 hours of training Monday through Friday, which is 15 hours. Well, what we typically do for clients is we say, hey, get reps access to that, have them go through that before they even start on Monday, or at a bare minimum, they need to go through it twice in their first 2 weeks, meaning that the rep goes through it 2 to 3 times in their first couple of weeks, which is much better than getting the live training that maybe is not as good only one time because the owner or the sales leader is busy trying to get that training process over. So because of the better training, the more consistent training, and the repetitive side of the training process, because the rep can go through it multiple times, it actually collapses the ramp up timeline for your sales reps as they come on board. So most roofing companies, they have about a 90-day ramp up period. 60 to 90 days are usually the numbers. And I would say 80% of our clients are, assuming that 90-day number when they onboard with us as a client. When your training is set up properly, it collapses that ramp up period in half. So as an example, let's say historically it's taken me 12 weeks to ramp up reps into quota. Let's say quota is $80,000 or $80,000 a month or 20,000 bucks a week, which is roughly $1 million dollars in sales per year for a rep. Well, let's say historically, if I have context of building my sales team, let's say that, in the past it's taken 90 days or 12 weeks to get there. Well, when the training is better and automated and reps are going through it multiple times, that 12 weeks collapses down to 6, at worst case 8. So that means reps are ramping up 2x faster, which is beneficial for obviously them and the company. All these things also naturally result into higher retention rates. That's the seventh thing. Bare minimum, we always see at least a 2x increase in retention rates when companies organize, create, and automate their new hire training because it's happening correctly, it's happening more. And all because of all the benefits we're talking about now, it naturally increases retention by at least 2x, and sometimes we see up to 5x. That gold medal roofing company that I was talking about, when they went from 1.75 to 5.5 million in Q1 of this year, um, they retained 40 reps. When from recruiting, they retained 40 reps in January and February, and those 40 reps produced, additional few million or 3 to 4 million, whatever that number is, in March. And their retention rates went up to 80%. So from less than 10% up to 80%. 80% is higher than the averages, but you get the point. Another benefit, and a lot of this stuff is only, maybe insightful for you if you have the context of recruiting and onboarding reps in the past, but it's important for you guys to understand this regardless. The next benefit, when you have your university, it's a good tracking tool, a good screening tool in the onboarding process. So let's say that you onboard 4 reps and they're starting this coming Monday, and you give everybody access to, Mike Roofing University or whatever it is. Well, what happens is you get everybody access this week, and they start to go through it, and you get into Monday, only 3 of the people showed up, right? Out of the four, that's the nature of the game and building a commission-based sales team. Out of the three that showed up, two of them have actually completed the university to 100%, and the other third person maybe completed 10 to 20% of it. Well, you know, those two are the most engaged and excited about the opportunity. They're the most trained because they've already gone through it, and they're the most engaged about the opportunity. And the guy that fell off going into Monday is he started to understand the opportunity more in depth going into because of the university, and he just screened himself out. And what happens in the first 2 to 3 weeks out of those three reps, that example, most likely what's going to happen in the first 1 to 2 weeks is the person that hasn't done, more than 10 to 20% of the training or whatever that example was, is they're going to fall off. And it allows me to understand where to focus my time on our sales team for new reps. Hopefully that is clear. A couple more benefits is it helps from a coaching perspective. So when we have a university and we're able to track exactly where reps are at, they're naturally going to bring up questions, but it's also going to naturally help us understand where they're at. So every training, as an example, has a quiz, right? If a rep is missing something within the quiz process, we know that potentially they need help there. And so through the tracking, through the testing of the university, plus because they're getting the information and proactively asking questions, it naturally allows us to coach reps up more quickly into the role. That's a benefit. And the last thing is just about money. So all of these things that we're talking about, they increase, your ROI from a recruiting standpoint by usually two, three, four, five X. And if you're investing time and resources into recruiting and onboarding, your time is very valuable. You want to maximize your ROI. And so if you can foundationally set up and automate your new hire training and get all these benefits that we're talking about, the scaling up your sales team is going to be a much better time and financial investment for you. So that's the first thing. Okay. So the conclusion here is it's a beneficial thing, obviously, to build out and automate your new hire training process. It makes onboarding exponentially easier on you. Okay. Saves you 10, 20 hours per week when you're actively recruiting and onboarding reps. The next thing, in terms of what's missing here. Oh, and by the way, to talk about something from a compensation perspective, we won't talk about percentages and stuff like that and get into too into the weeds there. But with roofing companies, um, you got retail and you got storm restoration, and then you got companies that do both. So, every opportunity in companies a little bit different. Some roofing companies are selling other stuff like solar, and so there's nuances, but in general, this is something that immediately helps your retention rates. And if you can kind of throw this on top of, your university piece, you're going to have really good retention success. And so usually, clients are, somewhere in between, again, that 60 to 90-day ramp up period for their sales opportunity. So let's just say for the sake of illustration that I have a 1, 2, 3 month process. Okay. Well, now in construction or roofing sales, we all know that unless it's like retail, and we're getting the money quickly, like in storm restoration, which is what my company, Bigfoot University, primarily does. Um, Storm restoration, the money's not quick. We're waiting on the insurance companies to send checks that are ultimately going to pay for the cost of, replacing the roof or whatever, right? And so what happens, like in our industry, as an example, and every company has its nuances, but what happens is the money gets delayed for the company, and therefore it gets delayed for the rep. And so, assuming a rep does really well, they're not making a ton of money until after the 90-day period. And so because of the nature of an opportunity like that, retention rates are usually really, really low. So attrition is high. And there's a compensation tool that you can use to immediately impact your retention rates and to help retain your best people that are showing up and doing the activities. Because the last thing that you want to do is persuade people to start with your company. They come in and they do the work hypothetically in the first month and they go, man, you know what? I'm not going to see money for another 30 to 45 days, probably. If I do well, maybe my doubt starts to increase. And then all of a sudden, I may get distracted about other opportunities. And you've lost somebody that's been showing up and doing the work. It's the last thing that you want. And so, what we do, this is just a general run through, is we kind of backtrack based on the opportunity, what a rep needs to do to ramp up into quota. So, let's say that quota is 80K, right? Which is 960 a year. Okay, just to make it simple, call it $1 million, I guess, right? So 20K per week is what we're trying to get reps up into in this example. Well, let's say hypothetically from our perspective, it takes 90 days. So at the end of month three to get up to 20K per week, which is on track for 80K per month. Now, what we do from there is we go, okay, well, if they were accomplishing 20K a week by the end of month three, which would be the week 12, what would they have accomplished in weeks 11, 10, and 9? What would they have done in month three? Well, let's say hypothetically they would have done X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay, cool. Well, what have they done? What would they have done in month two to be on track for X, Y, and Z in month three? Well, let's say that it was A, B, C. And now that I'm starting to reverse engineer what they needed to do in month two, this starts to help me understand what they needed to do in month one. And let's say that's one, two, three. And at a high level, what I've done here is I've gone, okay, this is our quota. This is what it looks like from a timeline perspective to ramp up. 12 weeks, 90 days, 3 months, whatever you want to call it. They need to get to here by the end of month three. I have a general understanding at a high level from a monthly standpoint what they need to do month three, two, and one. And then I can start to get more granular and break down month one, weeks one, two, three, four for month one, and then weeks five, six, seven, eight for month two, and then weeks 9, 10, 11, and 12 for month three. And then I can start to go, okay, this is what they're doing in week one, two, three, four, five, da, 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 right? And I backtrack all that. And then what that does for me as a business owner is it goes, okay, now I have a path of what they need to accomplish from an activity and production perspective to be in this example on track for 20K per week or 80K per month by the end of month three. And if a rep shows up and does this in week one, this in week two, this in week three, this week in four, and they accomplish one, two, three, whatever the number, whatever the result is, then what does that tell me? That tells me that they're committed, they're showing up and they're doing the work. And what do I want to do with somebody that's doing that? I want to retain them. I want their production. And if they're a good team member, I want them on our company long term. And so we have something called activity-based onboarding compensation, which is pretty much reverse engineering all these numbers. And they're different every single time for every company. And then what we do is we go, okay, let's bonus reps at the end of, in this case, month one, month two, month three, or whatever the timeline is ramping up into the position. So let's say hypothetically we want to bonus 2K month one, 2K month two, 2K month three, which is 6 grand over the first 3 months. And what we get to do in the recruiting process is we get to say, hey, we have $6,000 in training pay, but it's activity based, and that protects us financially as owners and allows a rep to have a carrot at the end of month one, then month two, month three, or whatever the timeline is, and allows them to collect some money as they ramp up into their commissions and their jobs flowing and their income picking up. Okay. Now, when you throw this on top of the university and this other thing I'm gonna go through right now, like, and you know how to recruit on top of that, it's like printing cash. Okay. And so hopefully that was helpful. Now we went through the university stuff. And if you guys have any questions around any of this stuff, just write it down and we'll finish up with Q&A here in a little bit. The main thing that we were talking about was recruiting and developing a leader, and that's going to be the next thing. But the thing, and if you're going to RoofCon, I'm not sure if you are North Star, but if you're going to RoofCon and you're going to stop by our booth, a few of our sales reps that are going to be there are not going to be presenting this next thing I'm going to go through right now. So if you ask about them, they'll be like, I'm not familiar with that yet. But it's something that we're in the middle of introducing on top of our university service where we help clients build out their custom new hire training universities. But one of the most challenging things for the owner or sales manager that's responsible for onboarding and retaining reps, right? The whole point of recruiting is to retain and to create sales production. Now, when you onboard a rep, there's a couple things that need to happen, or two really important things that are a huge time investment, assuming you're wanting to do the two most important things in the onboarding process. That is getting them the right information, the initial informational side of the training process. That's the university piece we've been talking about. But then on top of that, it's actually them practicing that process, the pitch, the offer, right? going to the door, whatever your sales process is, the canvassing script, the top objections, going to the roof, getting up on the roof, doing the inspection, coming off the roof, getting off the roof, going back to the homeowner and saying you have enough, insurance damage. Let's go ahead and call in the claim right now and file the claim, right? The entire process of understanding what needs to be said, what's pitched, all the way through the installation process of the roof or whatever part of the process in your company that the sales rep is responsible for. Those are things that they need to execute on well to ensure that they're closing and getting deals in so they have money flowing. Right? I can hear information all day, and that's a great first step. Okay. But the extra layer on top of that is an owner or a sales manager taking that same information that a rep is learning inside of the university and role playing with them. Practice the script, practice the pitch, communicate this roofing product. Uh, Here's the top 10 FAQs. Let's practice these. Boom, 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 boom. Right? If you spent, 2 to 3 hours a day with me in the first 2 to 3, 4 weeks, on top of me learning the information, practicing with me, obviously I'm going to be exponentially higher. I'm going to be a lot more successful than if you were not to do that. And it's probably going to be the difference, at least for some people, of actually seeing quick enough success so that they see money coming in and so that they retain with your business. And so the main thing here, the second thing that's missing typically from the informational side of the onboarding process, which ideally off of this call, you realize it needs to be automated, is the role play, right? Role playing, on selling your different types of customer profiles, setting appointments, closing appointments, doing your sales presentation, top FAQs, top objections, all of those things. When you can get reps the right information and role play with them, man, that's a beautiful thing. And so, in general, role play, if you add that on top of the university, it's something that can increase retention rates another 50 to 100%. Um, and so what we've done, because I've helped small business owners scale up commission-based sales teams, right? So that's kind of been my niche for almost 11 years actually. And so the biggest thing is they don't have the process and they don't have the time. And so I've been working for over a decade on how do I continue to improve the process to eliminate more time off of the small business owners or the sales manager's plate, making it exponentially easier to recruit and onboard high volumes of commission-based sales reps. That's what my whole career has been about. And so we're in the middle of launching something where we're going to be able to well, it's technically already launched, but we just haven't started, selling it to our client base yet, which will be the first people we start to sell it to. Um, but we've built out a system that automates the role play side of, management and onboarding and training, which is amazing. So if you can imagine your scripts, assuming those are created, top FAQs, your top objections, your sales presentations, the type of customers that you sell to, everything that we would want a rep to understand on how to communicate in the sales process in their job, right? Imagine that being uploaded to an AI role play system, and you get online as a rep and you're actually communicating and role playing with an AI person, right? You guys are familiar with all the technology that's been coming out. Well, ultimately, we've created an AI role play system that allows companies to automate the role play aspect of onboarding and managing reps. So if you can imagine automated new hire training, and then Monday through Friday in the first couple weeks or whatever the timeline is, reps get done with their new hire training university, which is downtime automated training, and then they transition into their role play training, which is also automated via their phone or on their laptop or desktop, allowing them to practice the job and get scored on that job and do it over and over again until they're doing well at an 80 to 90% success level. Well, you can see how this starts to delegate and make onboarding and retention much easier on the sales leader or the small business owner. Okay. And so when these two things are together, okay, new hire training, automated role play, it ends up pretty much replacing like a full-time sales trainer that would probably cost 150, grand a year. Okay, so that's what these two functions do. Now, um, if you're going to RoofCon, or if you just simply want to connect about this or any of the things that we're talking about today with me directly, if you want to connect about this AI piece, I'm going to drop a link to schedule a call. Um, in the chat. So if you want to talk about recruiting reps, recruiting and developing leadership, new hire training university, this AI role play piece, you can schedule a call. This is supposed to be for RoofCon attendees, but there was a technical issue, got sent out to the wrong list, and obviously there's just a couple people here, so which is cool. But if you want to talk with me directly, if you're not a client already, and or if you're not going to RoofCon and you're going to see our sales team, you can schedule a call right there. Okay, but university automated role play. Now you have an incredible onboarding process that's very simple for the small business owner who needs to act as the sales manager at the beginning, or for the sales manager to execute on their job, right? Even if it's a full-time leader or full-time leader within the business, if we can protect their time from having to do role play with new reps that may not even stick and produce at the company, and if we can protect their time from all the informational side of the onboarding process and transition that content into the form of a university, then that sales manager can do something much more valuable within the company, like manage the reps that are producing and improve the sales department systems. Now, let's talk about, um, and I'm going in this order because I'm thinking about, exactly somebody like you, Mike, right? If I were to take your company, Mike, you said it's just you, you've been selling, you got some good staff, but you're like, I've been doing this for whatever it was, like 20 years, right? I think you said something about 96 or something like that. And so, if I were to take a small business owner who's the everything guy, or specifically around sales, and I were to help them get a leader and build a team of 10, right, which is going to be, a five and, at a minimum of $5 to $10 million business, then these are kind of the steps that I would go through. Now, when people work with us, primarily they're coming in and they're investing into our recruiting services. And then they start to get introduced to these university things, role play, sales leadership development, these things that we'll talk about today. But if I were to go from 0 reps to a sales team of 10 and a leader over 6 months, this is kind of the process. Perfect the systems, automate the training, implement role play, automate that process, and then have a strategy for recruiting the leader, which is what we'll talk about now. Now, this is a 6 month process, okay? One, two, three, four, five, six. I'll discuss the recruiting model more because the last thing I'll talk about after this is recruiting commission-based sales reps. But recruiting leadership, right? We don't have clients, even if they have the budget, we don't say, hey, advertise a six-figure salary to recruit your leader and recruit somebody off the street that you don't know is going to produce and see success in their role. We don't do that. We say, hey, let's get somebody inside of the business that shows they can produce at a top 10 to 20% level for 3 months straight, that shows leadership attributes within the business for 3 months, that goes through some additional training on their downtime, and that shows over a 3 month period that they're not flaky and understand the business mission, the products and services, the sales process, the sales tech, and how the owner wants to operate the company before they get a chance to transition into leadership. So that's our view, is that people need to start in the sales rep role with an objective plan to advance into leadership, but they need to start there and prove themselves before they get the leadership role. Because if you were to even hire me as an example right into your leadership role, well, you don't know if I'm going to see success, right? Uh, what if I don't know how to sell well? That means I don't know how to coach well. What if all the things that I verbally said in the hiring process maybe, sounded great and you're like, this guy's a champion, but I come on board and I fail and I waste, 3 to 6 months of your time plus $50,000 in a salary, and all of a sudden you're in a more negative place than you were before. So we don't suggest that because it's not financially beneficial for the company. It's risky. Plus, it's just not the best strategy. So this is the strategy. And again, I'll talk about recruiting process after this, but when we go to recruit and develop leaders in roofing, it would be advertising for a roofing sales manager and training opportunity, as well as an outside sales representative position, as well as a roofing sales consultant position. So that would be kind of the ad strategy. Now, in all of these ads, it's going to communicate that we're actually looking for leadership. And that there's a 6 month process. And everything I'm going to go through right now is demonstrated in the job description. And we're advertising sales manager in training and for our rep role, although the ads show that you're not starting in leadership, even in the roofing sales manager in training ad. They go through the recruiting process that I'll go through here in a second, and they have to come in And over the first 3 months, go through those things I was talking about. Top 10 to 20% producer for 3 months, not flaky, demonstrate that they have a deep understanding of the products and services and sales process. They have leadership attributes, all of those things. You like working with them. That needs to be clear over 90 days, right? Now, if they do that over 90 days at this time, right, they qualify at this time after 90 days for the sales manager and training position. Sales manager and training. Now, what we've done here is at the beginning, we've actually recruited 4, 6, 8, 10 commission-based sales reps, all competing for this. And so what happens is you have hypothetically 6 reps that start immediately, and they're all going down this path of 3 months. Some of them are falling off and not producing like they said they would, but you have these 4, 6, 8 reps all competing in the first 90 days, trying to earn the chance to go into the sales manager and training opportunity. Now, when they do, well, when the first one does, then they're technically the sales manager in training. And then we start to transition 7 responsibilities to them over these months, months 4, 5, and 6. And every week, at least the way that we do it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks over these 3 months, they go through specific leadership and management training and coaching, while at the same time, internally, you are delegating responsibilities that we've led you to delegate to them around recruiting, onboarding, sales team meetings, one-on-one rep meetings, sales team reporting, sales coaching, and sales team support. Those 7 responsibilities. And so if you can imagine onboarding a bunch of reps, they're all trying to earn the sales manager and training opportunity. They're competing to do that in the first 90 days. One of them earns it. And then during this part, they start to transition as sales manager and training over to sales leader. And by the time that they get here, they're the full-time sales manager. Now, when they get to months 4, 5, and 6, they're starting to, in month 4, dedicate 10 hours of supporting you. Then in month 5, 20 hours. And then month 6, 30 hours. And then after month 6, they're at 40 hours. They're the full-time manager. In this month, they're shadowing you. You guys are co-managing together, and then you're shadowing them in month 6, and then you delegate the team to them, and they're on their way. Because throughout this entire process, we've also been recruiting reps, which I'll talk about here in a second. Okay. Now, this is kind of the strategy, the recruiting process, for recruiting and developing the leader without investing into the salary up front. When they get to here and they're investing 10 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours, this is where they start to get some additional leadership compensation pay, right? Some salary benefits, but you don't care about the salary because you've been scaling up revenue and some additional team members throughout this entire time. So by the time that they start to take time off your plate from a leadership perspective, and you're investing more into their compensation plan to offset the money that they're missing from their individual sales commissions, you're just paying for them to take the stuff off your plate. So the money doesn't matter here. And then they got the care of being the full-time leader with whatever their compensation plan is, and that's always custom to every company. So this is the leadership piece. Just to know, if you're not familiar with our service, we we set up our recruiting process and make it to where clients only have to do interviews. And we make the recruiting process of all this really easy. And by the time somebody earns this position, we actually help develop that leader. And we have the whole system that we just implement inside of the business of our client. Okay, but at a high level, that's the process or the strategy for recruiting a sales leader. Now, sales leadership is a full-time job. You don't want to be the owner, right? Even Mike, if you recruited if you retained a couple 2 to 3 reps and together they produced a couple $1 million over the next 12 months, you'd be like, heck yeah, this is freaking awesome. But the reality is you don't want to be the sales manager forever. And those reps are going to fall off. They're not going to be with you for the next 10 to 20 years. And it's the constant pumping into the reps, right? And the leadership needs to ultimately be a full-time thing because we got recruiting, onboarding, sales team meetings, one-on-one rep meetings, accountability, sales team reporting, sales coaching, and sales team support. These are all things that need to be a full-time function in the business, especially in a hard retention environment like building a commission-based sales team. So regardless if the company's looking to build a smaller sales team or a larger sales team, you want a leader. Now, we talked about, hey, if we built a team of 10 reps and a leader over 6 months, what would that look like? Well, We talked about the leadership recruiting strategy. Okay. Month one is when we onboard all those sales manager or future sales manager and training candidates. But also, and all our clients, by the way, we help tons of businesses all over the country. We've served over 1,600 companies. Okay. Um, most businesses do not desire or want to recruit like this straight. But conservatively, what we're talking about today is if you wanted to build a leader and a team of 10 retained reps in roofing that were producing at least 5 and up to 10 million bucks in revenue, this is the 6 month process if you wanted to hustle it out. Now, the hustling it out is much easier when you don't have to worry about 75 to 80% of the recruiting process like our clients do, and when the onboarding training is primarily automated and you're protecting your time and you're not getting burnt out as a leader. Now, on top of that, if you have a leader sometime in here that you're starting to delegate to, that starts to make it even more easy. But hypothetically, if you wanted to build a sales team of 10 by the end of 6 months, right? Let's say, for the sake of illustration, we have a 25% retention rate. I have an all commission outside roofing sales opportunity, 25% retention rate. I need to recruit 4 reps for every one that sticks. Okay. Well, in this plan, if my first month out of 6 was recruiting a future sales leader that's going to earn the opportunity to transition into the sales manager and training role here and then be the leader here, and I'm looking for 10 retained commission-based sales reps at the end of the 6 month period, well, obviously I'm going to need to recruit, months 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe even 6. Okay. If I have a 25% retention rate, well, pretty much what I'm doing is I'm recruiting, 8 reps a month, 8 a month, 8 a month, 8 a month, 8 a month. 25% retention rate means I'm retaining 2 a month, two, 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 two. And there's my 10 reps. There's my 10 reps. Okay. Now, the way that we recruit is we have an ads, a screening and scheduling process, a group interview process, and then a final interview process. Okay. So ads, it's all based on volume. We need to, you know, you need 50 to 100 applications for every recruit that actually shows up into onboarding, right? So if I'm recruiting 8 reps a month, hypothetically, and you don't have to do that, I'm just going based on the general math that we're doing today. If I need 50 to 100 applications and I'm recruiting 8 a month, then I need 400 to 800 applications every single month to cycle through enough candidates to get get in front of enough people to recruit my 8 reps per month, right? So that's 100 to 200 applications a week. Okay. So ads are based on volume. Then you have screening and scheduling. In that 400 to 800 application example, 75% of these people need to get screened out. Okay. So this goes down to 100 to 200 over a monthly period applications. So ads brings in this kind of number if we're talking about recruiting 8 per month. Hypothetically, we have clients that just want to recruit a couple reps here and there, and we have clients that recruit 100 reps per month. It doesn't matter to us, but again, we're just talking about in generalities with the 6 month plan. But we have ads, it brings in the volume. Then there's a screening process. You have to screen out 75% on average of these candidates and schedule them into a group interview. Okay. This group interview, as we build it out and implement inside of businesses, it is an 8 step process. It's 15 to 20 minutes. It pitches the culture, the industry, the company story, the plans for growth in the future, the sales model, the income ranges, the compensation plan, the opportunities for advancement into leadership where the company is growing, all of those things, what it looks like to ramp up into the role over 60 to 90 days. Those are kind of some of the general things that happen in this group interview presentation. Okay. Now, all these 1 to 200 candidates that are left out of screening out 75%, they're getting funneled into typically a couple group interviews weekly. Our typical client is doing 2 group interviews weekly, and they're doing 5 to 10 final interviews weekly, all about 30 minutes max each. It's about a 5 hour time investment between all of that, and they sign 2, maybe 3 reps. So if you were to do that every single week, you'd recruit 8 to 10 reps a month. What's cool about our service, if you're not familiar with it yet, is you can turn it on and off whenever you want to pump reps in. So if you recruited, 4, 5, 6, 8 people over 2 weeks or whatever, and you wanted to pause, you can do that. We'll just shut off recruiting. But what happened, the model is ads, screening and scheduling, right? We build out this entire process for companies. 8-step group interview, 6-step final interview. We train the owner or the sales leader on the group interview, the final interview, and then we manage the ads, the influx of candidate leads, all the screening and scheduling of the group interviews. And then the clients invest that 5 hours a week in group interviews and final interviews, sign 2 to 3 reps, and they do that whenever they want to pump reps into their system. Okay. Now, if we're going through the process of recruiting 8 a month, 8 a month, 8 a month, to get to our 10, then that's kind of the schedule. Okay. And centralizing stuff around an automated process and a group interview model, uh, especially when it's delegated to a company like ours, it eliminates 80% of the traditional time investment in the recruiting process. So if you can imagine building out new hire training, automating role play, now onboarding and training is freaking easy, right? And then having a strategy to recruit and retain and develop your future leader, as well as a strategy to only invest 5 hours a week when you want to recruit to sign 2 to 3 reps. That's how we blow up companies at our business.